So I've been making a gaggle of 100 small ceramic bowls, and making 100 of these might sound excessive, but I am a firm believer that there is no such thing as having too many cute little bowls, so I'm just going full throttle with it. So in order to make 100 clay bowls, I started off with 100 pounds of clay that I weighed out into balls of 1 pound each to make 100 clay balls for 100 clay bowls. And after making 100 of these clay balls, it's time to actually start working on the bowls. So I sat down at the wheel with my clay ball to make my first clay bowl, and I always give special attention to the first one because I'm going to use it as a model for everything I make after this, which I do by using this throwing gauge, which has little pointers that I set at the rim of the pot so that every time I'm making one after this, I can just pull the clay up to that pointer. With the throwing gauge, I'm able to pull with a lot more consistency, so with the first pull, I pull it up to the height of the pointer. Then for the second and third pulls, I'm pulling the clay outward toward the pointer until the rim of the pot is rubbing up against the tip of it. Then I just do some final touch-ups and remove it from the wheel. I made about 30 of these, and then I realized I probably shouldn't make 100 identical bowl shapes because I don't really need 100 of these, so I started making some different shapes. People are always asking me to make more catch-all style bowls for things like rings, coins, and keys, so I decided to make some of those. I wound up making about 30 of these as well, and then before I could finish throwing all 100 bowls, a bunch of them had dried to leather hard and were ready for trimming, so I decided to move on to that part of the process for at least the ones that were ready. At this stage, I just cut off the rough edges, cut a shallow foot into it, and stamped my name into them. But then I still had 40 clay balls ready to become 40 clay bowls, so for my last shape, I decided to make these little ramekins. These are pretty similar to the first bowls that I was making, but instead of being curved, they're more so shaped like a cylinder that's slightly tapered outward. Then I let all the pots dry until they were bone dry, and then they go into the kiln for their bisque firing, which removes all of the moisture from the clay and makes them receptive to being glazed. For the glazing, I wax any parts of the pot where I don't want glaze to stick, and then I quickly dip them into the glaze buckets to apply the glaze. And they go into the kiln for their final glaze firing, where they're fired at extravagantly high temperatures to make the final products. I did them in pink and blue and green and this nutmeg color. Then for the actual final step, I just hit them with this diamond sanding pad to smooth out the rough bottoms. And now all of these will be available in my next online shop update, which is next Tuesday, November 25th.